Just realised an absolutely terrible thing. Hello, everyone. It's working, but I'm currently sans an iron brew glass. That's terrible. I took them in and washed them while I was away. I will have to grab one in a second. Or I'll just I'll see if the Taffer will deliver me. The Taffer has been very helpful because his brother's not that well at the moment. His brother's managed to pick up ear infections in both ears. The Tafra has been stepping up and doing a lot of the work and really assisting. As you'll note, there is a message from him on the community page. Yes, the dog, my fluffy research assistants have started. They monitor the community page for me. It's the fluffy research assistants who monitor it, and occasionally they might well respond to you if you are happen to be there and asking them questions. I'm not sure why they've taken the starting talking on the community channel, but they have. We can all be slightly worried by it, but that is what their method of communication they've decided is the community channel. They have hijacked not my account to do it, they've hijacked my poor sister's account. But yes, that is the fluffy research assistants are communicating via that. Hello, Glyn, Stafford, Sage, Knight6 everyone, Constratus, and Cody85, BCH. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new one. Yes, this is the new live, which is slightly better. Yay! It's working and it's happier. Hi, Colin Cameron again, and I think, as you know, against all odds, the RN uses 6.1 inch turret, twin turret for cannon class, and Type 46 guided missile cruise, and why is a 6.1 inch turret and a 4.5 inch 50 cal Mark 8 twin turret possible? The 4.5 inch twin, probably. The 6.1 inch, well, you'd have to develop it, but yes. Hi, Michael Cooch. Tanaverka. Hello, Flat Black Copper. Hello. Hi, Steve Richards. Hi, Sage. Hi, Just B. Hi, Bob Fry. Hi, Carl Gasberg. Hi, C. Dollars. Hello, Frank Spadaro. Hello, Seth Thompson. Hi, Colin Cameron. Thank you. Any recommendations for restaurants near HS Belfast? Drac recommended Five Guys. Actually, there is a Cut Brasserie right next door, right next door to Belfast. Now, I'm not always the biggest fan of their food, but it is right next door to them, and it looks onto them really. It's really nice. It's good enough position. Thankfully, the position makes up for the food being slightly on the expensive side. However, if you want to know my best recommendation for places to go near Belfast, if you want to see it, it's not on the same side of the river as Belfast. In fact, it's the other side of the Tower of London. In Hotel M, there's a Hotel M not right next to the Tower of London. Up on top of that is called something called Bar M. In Bar M, it's basically a library in the sky on the 7th floor. You click to go to the 6th, and then you walk in and you can walk around the stairs. It's a lovely bar, and from the view, you can literally look out and see across the river, and you can see Belfast in all her glory. You can see the Tower of London from above. It is just, you can see Tower Bridge. It is just absolutely fantastic. And you can go up there and you can have a Coke for a reasonable price in central London. Sound seems low. Okay, why is the sound going low? What? I'm going to try something. Does this make the sound seem better? Because the sound should be about the same volume. So your sister might be weirded out by getting subs on YouTube. She'll be weirded out by a lot of things. Frank's obviously London used to blockade French burn John Arc and also in the Caribbean War II. Can you say more about it and what the British crew would do while on blockade duty there? Honestly, most of the time when they were blockading them, they were mainly trying to get food, and sometimes I know patrolling the Caribbean was one of their missions was blockading it, but it wasn't really a blockade. It was more we're keeping an eye on things and watching what's going on, and usually wandering off other places as well. Does anyone have a good reference for a refit on Warspite? I used 1930s Italian battleships for a comparison for a level refit, and the doctor was concerned. Okay, good reference for stuff on Warspite is, well, you've got Freedman's. British battleships won, but honestly, British battleships of World War One by Burt has some good stuff in it. And British warships of the Second World War by John Roberts has some good stuff in it. And there is actually a nice report in there somewhere, which I think Drac has not nicked on Warspite's refit in the architect's reports, which I'll look up for you. Sounds fine. You look overheated and drink more. Well, the trouble is that I don't have a glass currently. So, give me a second. Oh. I don't think Central London has reasonably priced anything. I say reasonably priced for Central London. Please note that little sort of nuanced phraseology in there. It's a reasonable price for Central London. One of the things that often shocks people is sometimes they take me places and go, "This is tremendously expensive," and I'm going, "No, it's not. I did my PhD at King's College London. I am used to walking into a Greggs and seeing a sandwich, which I know in every other Greggs in the country is only £2, for a fiver." Remember, I would like the good doctor to look at Star Wars ships and see what they're like and what they'll be like in real life. I've done a couple of videos where I've done that sort of. There are going to be more coming up over time. I've been talking and I've been sort of floating that next year's theme is going to be technology. And Star Wars universe is going to, of course, be a good example of technology because it seems relatively static and there's all sorts of things written into why it happens. And of course, I'm going to, of course, look at the technology in Glyn Stewart's books because that'll be fun and probably cause him a mild panic attack. Hi, Glyn. I know you're watching because you're chatting in the chat. Get in the chat. But also, I'll do the tech in Star Trek, and actually, also it'd be quite good to look at the tech in Stargate because there are some really interesting issues with the Asgard and the various technologies going around. So, would you consider Woodes Rogers a hero for ending Caribbean piracy? That which he didn't begin, yes, he did quite well. Black Clopper, how big was Drakenfeld's entourage? He didn't have an entourage today. He was literally. It's one of those cases. He is, and I always say this. He's one of my best friends. Probably my one. Yeah, him and Jamie are probably two of my two best friends because I spend so much time talking to them and chatting and working on them. And frankly, we almost social. Bilge pumps is practically socialization. So yeah, there's that. But more importantly, I would say he's one of those people who really doesn't understand how important and famous he is. He's still very shocked when people come up to him and go, "Are you Drakenfell?" And I have fun because I'm sort of standing next to him and I'm going, "Yes, it is. Do you want me to take a photo of the two of you together?" And I'm sort of going, "Yeah." I take the photo, and then sometimes what happens is they walk quite as far away, and then they go, "Gung," and they turn around and come and go, "Are you Dr. Clarke?" And I go, "Yes," because that's even scarier for me. Quite fun, but scary for me. Mm-hmm. First one, Dodge see how many Iron ships were badly damaged by the Blitz? I can't think of statistics in serious. Less than you would presume, but more than the Iron was comfortable with. The reason why less than you would presume is because the Blitz, because of its focus, it didn't tend to do it. It did specific days on certain harbors, but it didn't really do a lot of them. And when it did do those harbors, how do I put this? The Royal Navy exists and survives World War II mostly by the fact that the ships being in harbour are very rarely in harbour. Most of the ones which are in harbour and damaged in Harbour Blitz are ones which are already under repair for other things. Stafford, did you have you happened to see my question on Instagram regarding Battle? No, it's Babylon 5. Not yet, but I'll track it down. Thomas 1918. What do you think about the recent discovery of Sang B? Do you think there are still wrecks out there, or even she lives? There's the possibility that there are wrecks down there. You have to remember, it's all to do with how the wreck makes contact with the bed. If it manages to make it in a gliding fashion, if it's deep enough, it slows down and it doesn't get crushed by the pressure. It's at that sort of optimum depth of not so deep it gets crushed by the pressure, but deep enough it glided to the bottom rather than crashing to the bottom. And it's been preserved because it's also at the right point for the alkali and the sort of the various creatures not to have eaten it. Yeah, there could be more wrecks. I think I would really have liked to have spent some time in the Black Sea going over there because the Black Sea, I'm sure, has wrecks in it, which could be really interesting ones. They could be wooden wrecks. I'm talking Phoenician, etc. ships in there. So, do you concur with Drac that the Star Trek is the 1890s in space? There is certainly an argument to be made for that. Do I concur with 100%? No, but I see where he's coming from. But how do I put this? I find I don't find the 1890s as compelling as he does for that scenario. But it's a kind of case of it's a fun debate to have because all of them are interesting. Sure, I put Stellaris up against Galactic Civilization for purpose, but that's my own biases. I'll have a look. Professor, I'm digging through old family papers and learning things. Now I need a good reference on seaplane operations. What to do? Any particularly South Pacific? There are some really good ones out there. There are some really good ones out there. Saffron, I'm not sure who was more deer in headlights on the hideout when I met Dragonville. He or I. Yeah, it is quite fun when the people get together. So when people come up to you and Drac, and says, "Are you Dr. Clarke?" That will be a very confusing time for me. No, second, reading up against an old a wiki on the Lion class. Could a Lion class battleship, one of 11? Okay, this is going to be a long one. Fit 8 twin quick-firing 4.5-inch 55 caliber Mark 8 guns, Type 9858 air search radar, Type 988 air search radar, 5-4L CCAT SAM, 2-2-rail GWS 31 launchers of CDART 2, and 4 30mm Goalkeeper CLS. Then later rebuilding the ship with 8 Rolls-Royce W21 gas turbines with diesel engines for 234. Why are you putting that many gas turbines in the poor ship? It's going to go so fast, it's going to shake itself apart. You're building the battleship equivalent of the USS Defiant, where its engines are so powerful it rips the ship apart. It could fit all that, yes, but I'd honestly be... how much of that's too ridiculous? It's not ridiculous you could fit it all in, but it's also a case of, oh my lord, that ship's going to wreck itself. It's going to go that fast. By the point at which you'd be fitting those particular WR-21 gas turbines, it would wreck itself. Unless it's completed post-World War II, in which case it might be okay, it might not be stress enough. Steve Clarke, should he take a PhD and become Dr. Drac? I keep it. I've made sure to introduce him to Andrew Lambert, so if Andrew takes him on as a student, he'll be very happy, I'm sure. But it's up to him. Paul Amos went to the wrong livecast. It happens. There were 2. The one on the phone got a bit scratchy. Starship's Mage is Starship's Mage is the tandoori pizza of science fiction. If you want it, you want it, but it's a shock to get it by surprise. Black Hawk. Build Trump's very important. Thanks for that. It's going to be fun this week. And it's going to be fun next week. Next week we have someone really cool on. This week we have a cool person as well. I've heard Trek is more an analogy of the Cold War, but I'm not really a specialist in that. Not really. They often point out it's basically the early one is the the joke was the Soviet Union was the Klingons, but honestly, I prefer the Klingons to the Soviet Union. Stuff Thompson, would you like the complete Babylon 5 Drive if you don't have it yet? You think at Stafford A, it's very generous of you to offer that, but B, you think I'm allowed to be friends as long as I have with Jamie Seedell of Armored Carriers, Jamie of whom Babylon 5 is life, and I have not had to watch the entirety and have the entirety of Babylon 5. I mean, I love the idea that you think I'm that strong against that level of peer pressure, but there are levels of peer pressure which even I buckle under, and that is one of them. I even watched what was the thing? Battlestar Galactica, the new series completely, the season thing completely for him. There's a level of peer pressure which we all have to bow into when our best friends are implementing it. Do you have recommendations for what? I've missed the first question, I think. Hello, Stephen McGibbert. Templar. Hello, Templar. Hey, Doctor. Was Bismarck's forward gun turret... Well, Bismarck's forward gun turrets poorly armoured, or did Norrie just get a lucky hit when she disabled them? It's a bit of both. The armour is actually quite thick, but the trouble is no amount of armour can really protect for where the actual 16-inch gun hit. The shell hit in terms of Bismarck. And also, you have to remember quite how good the 16-inch guns on Nelson and Rodney were. There are a lot of people who go, well, there are better 16-inch. There are, but they're still 16-inch guns, and they're still pretty good for what they were. They are the flower of World War One thinking. They're not the flower of what World War Two level thinking would be, but they're the flower of World War One thinking, and they are pretty good at killing German battleships, which was what they were basically designed to do. VCH, please I beg you, can you explain what a Vauxhall 19th century donkey pump was and how it was used in the Royal Navy? No. Can't believe you asked me that. If I can find a decent picture. Okay. I found a decent picture of it. Can I use that picture? Look, I found a PDF which has some wonderful drawings of them. I think this might. I think this might require me to do some more work to get actually turn it into something. But what I'll do is I'll produce a short on it for you. How's that sound? Yeah, and I should also announce that mention that I'm going to be on Italian Military Archives on their YouTube channel on Tuesday at 7 p.m. CST, which I'm presuming is Central European Standard Time. Anyway, we'll work it out. And ITA is going to be on various things coming up. It's going to be fun. Oh. Oh. I don't know. I appear to be having had a whole Twitter life today while I was just, ignoring the world and in the joy that is Tankfest. Okay. So it does. Got back from Tankfest an hour ago with lobster arms. I got back from Tankfest about 40 minutes ago. Lambert's the best. Thanks, on it. Let's see. Do you have a new book about Admiral Lee? No, not yet. Senator, has a World War II wreck ever crushed an Age of Sail wreck or earlier wreck? There is a story about a Liberty ship, but I'm not quite sure how apocryphal it is, because it was told to me by an archaeologist who is known for being a bit of a wind-up merchant occasionally, especially in the pub. The line rebuild of stuff added later against Lords has the line get canned in the 40s and brought back in the 60s, 1980s, 60s, 80s. Oh, yeah, that's always a possibility. Georgian was never sure who was supposed to be standing in for the Russians, the Klingons or the Romulans. I think it was a mixture of both. Glenn Stewart, my sole defense against Babylon 5 and Farscape is my inability to watch TV. That's always a good thing. Hakan, Burgle, the top turret moves on my M3. Has there been an update I missed? Also, great live stream. Thank you. The top turret moves on your M3. That's always good. Is that your model M3? Changes Verdun, Templar. Rodney's guns being very powerful helps normally. It's an inch of armor per inch of gun caliber to protect you, broadly speaking, and depending on distance, remember. And remember how close Rodney and King George V got to Bismarck. 16-inch shell versus 14.2 inches of armor equals ouch. Yep. Is an Operation Rhine a bigger disaster for the RN as they lose Hood and a tribal compared to the Germans losing Bismarck? No, because honestly, the RN have a lot more capital ships and they're building a lot more. And they have a lot more destroyers and they're building a lot more. The Germans losing Bismarck is, well, that's them. They've lost 25% of their total capital ship construction. That's the point. That's the point you was to make. The British, for them, losing a capital ship is a bad day at the office. For the Germans, losing capital ship is devastation. The fact that they lose 50% of their capital ships during World War II is disaster. As, again, we go through that sort of. 1 is none. It's a white elephant. 2 is a capability, depending on availability. 3 is an available capability. 4 is a capability. A full, constant capability. 5 is a, wow, we now usually have 1 capable, 1 at sea, and 1 available, guaranteed. Sometimes more. You go up that. You have 15, 16, 17. You have enough capital ships that losing 1. Oh, that's terrible. I'm devastated loss of the crew and the personnel. That's one of the things I also make. The loss of Courageous and Glorious isn't as big a loss. It isn't a loss in terms of ships. It's a loss in terms of experienced crew. That's far more of a problem for the Royal Navy and far more difficult for them to make up for than the loss of a ship. They can build more of them. I was looking for a good spine starter book on Southwest Pacific seaplane operations. Well, I have a recommendation for that one. Let me just check. You'll want Eyes of the Fleet by David Byrne. Eyes of the Fleet, U.S. Navy seaplane tenders and patrol aircraft in World War II. It's really good. It was published in 2016, and it's a lot of fun to read. Is there any way to find a sense on the size of lenses for the optics and what guns they were used? They were for HMS Ajax. As my grandpa has given me a lens he acquired from stores while serving aboard. There should be. There are a few different sources, but if you look up the rangefinders and the marks of rangefinders that were fitted to the guns at the time he was aboard, you could probably find out which one it comes from. So anyway, what do you think a 16-inch gun would look like now if the development of naval artillery continued after World War II? Probably not that much different to how it looked then, but the technology and the breach system behind it would be very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if by this point we had auto-loading 16-inch guns. Just think about auto-loading 16-inch guns. For example, let's see, how might the sinking of Bismarck be any different if the first sortie of Swordfish had hit the rudder like the latter attack did? If the first sortie had hit the rudder, then she'd have been in that spin when the second sortie arrived, which would probably meant she would have got damaged. Might well have got damaged again. She's certainly been a lot easier target for them. In which case, she could well have ended up having a very bad night. And she might have, considering that night is the night that she gets tormented by destroyers, she might have actually got sunk by destroyers. Nighttime Partners, hi. Navalized Tornado goes ahead in a world with multi-class carriers. Their replacements on the way. Does this requirement alter the aircraft in any dramatic way? Probably strengthens the the airframe, especially aft, to allow for an anchor point for the tailhook. And probably you're thinking, probably the tail might get might become folding. In your opinion, what plagued Warspite's steering gear that she had trouble with every now and again? Gremlins or angels? Honestly, there's no real. It's a complicated system. Any ship steerage, especially when it's armored and done to be redundant, have redundancies and built in. So there can be issues, but yeah. The flip side, do you have a new book project at the moment? I have about 3 new book projects I'm working on at the moment. There are various air shows, but hopefully the Museum of the Royal Navy might someone. We can always hope. It does do a bit of something. Would I be right in thinking that Hood being over 6 million was in part due to her entire class having to resign midway through building? That doesn't exactly help. But also, she is quite expensive. And it doesn't put up the cost as much as you'd think it would. Because Hood wasn't as redesigned as much as the others. In a world where a full class of Type 82 HMS Bristol are built, guess the reason. What pros and cons will this have on the RN in the latter quarter of the 20th century, given that the Type 42 came out due to their cancellation? You'd be dealing with far bigger Type 45s and far more capable ships. If you've got the 82s, you then go 85s. So you'd probably be dealing with Darings which were at least 3,000 to 4,000 tons bigger than they are now. in order to do the job, and you could well be dealing. You'd be looking at even bigger for the Type 83, probably. Considering I was drinking 0.5% beer yesterday, it's not fair that I feel as though I have a hangover today. I also have FOMO from lack of visiting Tankfest. You did miss out on a lot of fun. There are pictures which might come out of what some of the stuff we ended up doing at Tankfest, but there is a picture going around where I am very much the I don't know why I'm here, but I'm being included because you're all nice, so I'm gonna take it and smile. No worries, Nature's fun done. I can always add things in. Um, Drakenred, hello. Question: have you ever run across anything in other navies as bad as Burord and its torpedoes in 1940? Oh, all navies go through their periods. All navies go through their periods. There's the whole Juna Collins effect on the French Navy starters. The Russians have fun with sub design at several points. The Japanese have their obsession with just supersizing everything, which just causes problems for their infrastructure department. And their infrastructure department really doesn't know what it's doing. Royal Navy has, of course, the whole HMS Captain saga. And that all happens because of a single section of the Royal Navy being quite so intransient. The fact that they're wrong doesn't matter. They're just so intransient. And that's the main problem with Bureau. They're just being intransient and can't believe they do wrong. Okay, 4472. I have attained a copy of Jane's World Railways 1972 to 73. I was wondering where to look for earlier copies, about 1930-ish or 40-ish. This is the point at which normal people expect me to start recommending off these wonderful bookstores. But no, I usually say eBay. Because if in doubt, usually those things turn up somewhere on eBay. That's where I find most of my classic book finds these days at the moment. It's a pity that less people remember or even care about the great TV series. Space 1999. Hey, caramba. Next one, let's see. What would be a better name for a battle that sank the Bismarck? Eh. Honestly, look, I won't say it, but draw circles around a spiral around Bismarck out from where it sunk until you get to its closest piece of land, and then see why no one named it after that piece of land. So, how different did the Littorio class to replace the Francisco Caracola class battleships if they've been built? If you have the Caracolas, you have to suddenly go, well, if the Littorios are going to replace them, how much more capable do you want them to be? Are they going to have new 15-inch guns? Are they going to have 16-inch guns? What are you going to... How... You have to build something, if you think about it, especially if you're under still fascist Italy, with Mussolini, who like things just big, has no concept of actual detail, but just wants big, just obsessed with it being big, and beautiful. It's a case of, well, what can I say? Just take a Francisco Caracola and just think, what would you be if you were bigger and faster and had more guns and more armor? So they'd be a real problem. So, Doctor, did the RN have any large changes to work uniforms during World War II? Not really. The RN doesn't usually change uniforms during the wars that much. The flash gear and some of the protective gear improved, and some of that was changed over. But It doesn't really change the working uniforms that much, if that makes sense. Grandman, I think it's a good point worth repeating. Losing hardware is not good. Losing experienced personnel is worse, e.g., current Ukraine. I think you'll forget. If you're talking about small guns, there is an issue there. But if you're talking about a ship and you're moving a shell which weighs the weight of a 16-inch shell, it's already starting to get fairly automated before you even begin there. So, there's lifts, all those mechanisms involved. Getting it to the point to which today I said our modernized 16-inch gun would be an autoloader. It would be. All naval guns today are autoloaders. In the nicest way, the 4.5-inch gun on a Royal Navy frigate is a low autoloader. The 5-inch gun on most warships around the world is Western style warships around the world is an autoloader. Get used on ships. There are autoloaders are standard because it's a different scenario. Are you still going to have the full engineering crew, etc. aboard? Yes, you are for the battle damage. Losing a loader on a tank takes you down from 4 to 3 crew. So that's 25% loss of crew. You still have dozens of engineers wandering around. And again, on a ship, even if you lose the turret crew, but you're still going to have the weapons engineers around to maintain it and keep it good working. So, yeah, you don't have all the loading personnel, but that doesn't really matter. You still have the engineers to maintain it. Oh, it's a good point for being losing hardware is not good. I think I misread your point because I think your point is from the carry discussion earlier, not the gun ones. Sorry, I had the same debate earlier about the guns. Sorry about that. I guess that was one of the debates I ended up home today. Actually, had fun at the Tank Museum about gun design. Different. Would this be good enough motivation to get a liquid propellant so you don't have to shift the bag charges? Why would you want a liquid propellant? Under what world would you want a liquid propellant which could leak out places? In what kind of universe does a liquid propellant which can leak and flow places sound like a good idea on a ship? Look, yes, liquid propellant as a concept sounds like a good idea. Then put liquid propellant into the concept of on board a ship. A warship, which might get hit and put on fire. No, no, liquid propellant, please. No. The idea as an abstract is a beautiful one, I agree. The idea as a practical one is burning, collapsing, firing things. Remember, you're the second person to recommend that one. It's a good book. Lions, have you thought about something like taking an hour-class battleship, removing South Turret, and filling the rest with VLS tubes? That's always an option, but it's still going to be weight to balance it. Probably would need to add some concrete somewhere to balance the hull. Miracle Couch. We're also loading 6 right up until the first accident explosion, at which point the Powers B would panic and revert to muzzleloaders. Doubtful. They probably just call in a massive consultancy firm. But what went wrong there was that they didn't hit 25 knots. They didn't go for the small tube boilers. And it was whilst it was theoretically possible the boilers they fitted, it was never going to be actually possible because it was theoretically possible if everything worked perfectly with the boilers they fitted. Whereas for the small tube boilers, it would be theoretically it would be possible even if the systems didn't work perfectly. Do you have perhaps another recommendation of seaplanes for balancing purposes? Oh, you want a second book? on seaplanes. Um. Mm-hmm. Ah. Let's see. USN seaplanes. Mm-hmm. Why am I getting a way solution whenever I look this up? That's just disturbing. That is disturbing. I do not want way. Seaplane, seaplane, seaplane. Oh, good. Oh, no, not that one. That one. Oh, God. Why are there so many books about the. Ah! No. No. Sorry, I keep being assaulted by pictures of. Good. No. Why are there like 3 books on that ship? It's disgusting. And it's possibly disturbed. Seriously, I found an entire collection of different books on the burn, followed by books about the Graf Zeppelin. Why did that show? I have got to have a conversation with, I don't know, with something, with Amazon, because I just typed in PBY Catalina to see if a book would come up, which I had asked for, was looking, thought would be a good one, and it came up with bras and panties. Okay, Lewis B. Dorney and Jim Lorger got a good one, which I have actually got according to this, called U.S. Navy PBY Catalina Units of the Pacific War. I guess I do. That one is a good one. There's also another one by Ragnar J. Ragnarsson, which is on the Atlantic. So they could both be interesting. And there's also a book which is their flight officer instructions for flying. But yeah, I'd say the Catalinas, and there's also 80 years tribute to the PBY Catalina by Hans Wilmsen, which is all good. Hang on. Ooh, that's available. 1986. There is Roscoe Creed's one as well. Matt Bradley, the Royal Navy in the Napoleonic Wars, did they have supply ships of food and ammunition like they have done in World War II? Yes, they had supply ships. They were bringing out some ammunition and stores like that, but mainly food. Mainly it was supplying food. Similar, would there be a benefit to creating an Aegis system similar to Britain's Army forts, assuming they could be rapidly produced in solid locations offshore found for them? Well, it depends. What are you requiring it to do? Do you want it to provide air defense? In terms of an air search radar for peacetime capability to watch civilian airliners, then it's perfect. If you want it to be something in a wartime, you'd have to defend it because it's going to be a fixed and known location. Oh, thank you.
I need payment for this.
What do you need payment for?
I've got to stop my job to go and get it.
Thank you.
Sorry, is the soil on it?
No, it's just a little bit. It's cloudy from dishwasher.
It was hand washed, actually.
You hand washed it and it came with this many fingerprints on it?
Well, it's probably the...
Terrible, sister. Terrible.
It's probably the soil on my hand.
No worries, don't worry.
I suggest...
Thank you.
Yes,
I do it myself if I want it different.
I'll go back to my tomato plants.
Go and enjoy your tomato plants. Don't kill them all. I like tomatoes. Occasionally. To look at. Yeah. Quite fun to look at. They look like little balls. Anyway. Tomato sauce on pizza is allowed. Then it becomes an honorary meat. Ooh, speaking of pizza, I haven't had food today. I had a burger. Oh, I'll sort that out in a bit. Anok, any thoughts on new Chinese carrot? See bilge pumps. There were lots of thoughts then. Yeah, but putting Aegis thoughts out... There is merits to all these things, but it's a case of how much money do you have, and would that money be better spent elsewhere? I think the Japanese decided the money would be better spent on having more Aegis ships, which they can move around. Like I said, would I be right in that Hood could not have her 5-inch, 7-inch, and 12-inch belts replaced by a 14-inch belt and then multiple layers of deck armor replaced by a single 8-inch thick deck armor? Well, that's for a what do you want to degree of right? Could you do it? If how much money are you prepared to pay? You are basically going to be building an entirely new ship. If you are prepared to pay the money to build an entirely new ship, you can do it. Hang on. If you are not prepared to pay the money to build an entirely new ship, then you can't. That is the scenario you're dealing with, because once you're doing that level of structural rebuild, you are building a new ship. PCH, take HMS Duke of York and USS Iowa. Hold them up on some kind of super crane and drop them into the water from 100 feet. Will they swamp? Will one or both of them still float afterwards? Well, if they're both completely tied up, and if they're doing a belly flop, they could both be floating afterwards. They should both be floating afterwards. If you drop them into the water and they have all their doors open, then they'll flood and they'll basically sink. It's one of those scenarios. If it's all sealed up and all watertight, as much as it can be on a ship, yeah. Would I want to do anything in them afterwards? No, because, let's be honest, their engines are going to be out of alignment. Every single shaft is going to be out of place. All the electronics are going to be dumped. There are going to be turret issues up the wazoo. I mean, it's going to be frigated completely. Completely and utterly frigated, if not cruisered. So, yeah. Be fun. So I found out why my 100 Irish subs didn't do anything against Germany in my HOI4 game. I hadn't joined the war. That would be a small problem. Very honest. Dusty, could LiDAR be used to scan under the mud of Bismarck's hull for damage? Ooh. Not LiDAR, no, but there are certain sonars which could certainly give you an idea of the damage, but they're very, very expensive. And it would be basically, you would have to be a side array, hull mounted, so a side array towed sonar system, or probably actually best mounted on a deep sea UUV. Josh, have you kept up with the developments on the USS Sullivan since returning from your visit? Yep. Ooh, good lord! I'm just working out how many questions behind I am. I'm going to have to add the time stamp so I can keep can I follow it? Well, the timestamps are working now. Right. So, by 1942, I had 400 ships in service, as well as 100 light cruisers and 35 knot battleships. Not sure what you've done to Ireland, Seneca Nero, but that sounds frankly scary. Warspite somehow managed to outpace her sisters to get shots in on Vittorio Veneto, despite being slower than her sisters at the time. Never count Warspite out. She doesn't understand the concept of of mortal speed limits. Seneca, what is the piece of land near Bismarck? I'll look it up. Indigenous Anne, are you familiar with Gloriana class battleships, the flagships of the Primarchs? How can the Mechanas make parts to repair the few surviving ships but can't make more? Well, that's actually quite easy because I'm presuming the parts they can build them are quite easy. But has anyone checked what happened to the dry dock and facilities which were used to build them? That would be my first thing for anyone wondering. There's no mention in the Horus Heresy exactly what happens to the facilities around Terra, but I'm presuming the fleet facilities around Terra were some pretty massive spaces, and they seem to have lost quite a lot of their facilities in that scenario. So that's what I'm guessing would have done, and honestly, the fact that Gilliman is probably starting on rebuilding those sort of structures, but that's probably a long way down his list. That's it. Given on the Queen Elizabeth rebuilds, getting a small number of more powerful boilers to replace their old boilers, wouldn't that have been the plan for the Hood? Yep. And then you could use the weight for other stuff. Dr. Clarke, I haven't looked on eBay, but my books on naval history now number 6. I don't think you need to worry about a competition on that front. Yeah, there's always competition. And look, changing uniforms in peacetime is something that happens because admirals need to do something to change the Navy and air image. Honestly, in the Royal Navy, you change the... basically, it's a case of we finally ran out of the cloth we ordered in 1923. Oh, dang, blast it. We'll need to order some new cloth. It won't fit the pattern machine, the new cloth. So we'll have to change the uniform pattern? Summon the priests. Summon the bishops. Summon everyone. This will be a conclave. Nicest way. If you want to see a more Byzantine and extremely intriguing process than the election of a pope, you want to see the Royal Navy picking a new uniform and design. It's just... I'm fairly certain the current uniforms have been the way they have been for about 50 odd years, and I don't think they're going to change anytime soon. They keep talking about adding bits in. They added in a... They were very happy. They added in a ball cap recently. Where's the closest one to it? Yeah. Pretty much it looks like this. And I'm not sure. I think they got them from the US Navy, honestly. I don't know where. They got them from somewhere. Comes, name the last battle of Bismarck after the underwater volcano she hit. Unfortunately, I didn't realize she hit it until after they found it. If the Shikaku class were battleship battlecruisers, would they be like Hood or something else? They're further along the route towards the fast battleship from memory. Shikakus. Let's see. By that point, if the Shikakus had been completed as capital ships rather than as battleships in their time, rather than aircraft carriers, they've been completed as capital ships rather than aircraft carriers. They'd probably be further along. If you have to consider where the Japanese were heading, they'd probably be further along the fast battleship route. Before someone is like start going, that's because I'm currently looking at the food option orders. What do I fancy? No, I do not fancy that. I do not fancy tandoori. Not tonight. Let's see. We'll have a think about food options while answering questions. That'll help me sort out what food I like. I fancy. Let's see, on the wiki page, last battle of Bismarck, where's the picture taken from? It does not specify. If it's a picture I think it is, it's from Nelson. Yeah, it's if I remember correctly, it's from Rodney. It's from the Nelson class. Rodney. I think it's from Rodney. It was taken by Lieutenant J.H. Smith, the Royal Navy official photographer. If I remember correctly, he's on Rodney. Da-da-da. Da-da-da. Yeah, I've got the picture up in front of me. I have this feeling it's not on the IWM site, but I have this feeling it's from Rodney. I don't know why I'm saying it, though, but I do have this feeling it's from Rodney. I knew it was not from the Nelson class vessel there, and the more I look at it, the more it looks like Rodney. Website, on a liquid propellant, you would want to make it a binary mixture so that each component stored separately would be safer than a powder charge. No. Just no. There are lots of theoretical ways, but just please no. 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 We've tried liquid propellant. We've tried liquid. In a nicest way, we have enough joy with auto fuel and torpedoes which need to be fueled before they can be launched, and missiles which need to be fueled before they can be launched. Please, let's not try liquid propellant. Let's not. It's like the island of Ushant is technically the first people to land from where Bismarck was sunk. Mm-hmm. Yes. And please have a look through history for the battles of Ushant. There is 1788 and 1944. There are also though 17, as well as 1778, there's 1779, 1780, 1781, 1782, Glorious 1st of June, and of course 1944. Do you really want to make another Battle of Ushant? Do you really want to? It will become problematic. It's already problematic. There's already 7 other things. Be 8, and there'd be one which involved Bismarck, so it would immediately suck all the history out, all the writing for that battle. And there'd be a competition between that and the Glorious 1st of June over which was the most well known, and which, well, one's already got a movie. I think the Glorious 1st of June has a movie as well, though, from memory. I seem to remember watching something, I swear. Another movie was a really, really weird documentary. Possibly a really weird documentary that I've seen far too many of those recently. Sea Dodders, did the Royal Navy ever consider adopting their own version of US as a high-pressure brothel plant? Yes. And again, it's one of those things. If the Royal Navy hadn't had war when it had war, it might well have gone with an adoption process. But it's forced to take its. It's one of those things. Is technology doesn't actually tend to advance much in war. It's just you implement technology you had in development, and it was already point. But it's the point at which you go, right, that'll do, and done. Which is one of the problems for the fascist powers, because they start their preparations for war that much earlier, so they take their technology at a slightly earlier point. So the Allies take it at a slightly later point. And America and Japan both managed to go a little bit later. Honourable, suppose the units were Naval class get built as dreadnought armor cruisers with 12 9.2-inch guns apiece in 4 troubles. How does that hold up in terms of when these ships get spent? They probably spend 23 knots. Why would they be going 23 knots? If they're down to 9.2-inch guns, you can get them up faster than 23 knots, surely at that size. But no. How does that hold up in terms of where the ships get sent? Probably still they still do much the same, but they possibly get handled differently. There's possibly a distinction made between them and earlier classes. Those probably become dreadnought cruisers, and Queen Marys, etc., on the Glorious Cats become known as battle cruisers. They probably make that distinction, which could be interesting in when it comes to treaty time. Would British destroyers have managed Typhoon Cobra better? Hmm. Let's see if I can find a decent map. Let's be honest. Destroyers sunk. Mm-hmm. Let's see. They're not that massive, but there again, the British have. It's a case of which destroyers. They're lacking fuel. They're Fletcher class destroyers, which are sort of damaged. They're all lost. Yeah, Spence, Hircox, and Maddox. They're all. Well, no, Spencer, Hull, and Monaghan. Yeah, Spencer, Hull, and Monaghan. Spencer. Hmm. Honestly, no one's going to do much better in that. They're all going to be affected in different ways. Possibly, some of the larger British destroyers, especially the later war larger destroyers, would have done better. But there again, the same can be said for the American later war larger destroyers. When destroyers start to get bigger, they tend to start getting more better in terms of their bows for actually taking damage. It's an interesting question, though, to think about. Would anyone have done much better? Sim Richards, 16-inch autoloader. How would it work? Would you still need propellant or incorporate it into the shell? You probably still need a propellant, but I presume an autoloader would have a system which would go propellant, propellant, dun dun dun. They would, instead of them being bags, would probably all be would be cased propellant. So it'd be something rigid which could be put in, selected by the machine. So you basically in the fire control room you select, I need this goes, so it automatically goes right. That distance computed. This many propellant charges. Dun dun dun. This done. Angle fire. Senator, that's not information I needed or want to know. That was my sister. uh, if your sister kills you, I will testify in her defense as a just cause. Yeah, but please note, I did do my fair share of things before I went, and she said she'd do it while she'd wash my glasses while I was away. So it wasn't, no, not completely lazy going on. Not completely lazy. Great Dominion. Why weren't walruses used more regularly for gunnery spotting in the elections? Was using C-5 Spitfires for naval bombardment spotting in Normandy campaign a good idea? Not really. They didn't really use them for that much bomb spotting in Normandy, and honestly, you had forward controllers mostly doing that. And walruses and used more regularly for gunnery spotting in the elections. They were used when it was practical to use them. But the trouble is, if, well, let's say in the scenarios you're using them, do you want to use them in the Mediterranean where there's lots of fighters going around which might insult them? No. And once you have the scenario of we're going to be a fighting enemy which has carriers, oh, well, there could well be fighters up. That's not good. Tim and Ellen Moran, you have a nice family. I do. They are nice. Hi, Sean Mac. Hi, Danny Wright. Maybe that's exciting for one. Maybe it would save her in different ways. You see, the scenario is that lucky shot would still probably penetrate if that lucky shot hit. But if she could get, her engines were better and she was working faster and she was able to move faster and maneuver better, she might not be in that position to take that hit. It might have been a different scenario. Also, nice way, if you've got a criteria where the big things have been light enough on the capital ships that they are free enough to send her in for her refit before then that suggests that, well, A, Glorious and Courageous didn't get lost in Mersal in Norway. So maybe Norway, the Royal Navy was one, but also maybe Norway wasn't one, but also maybe there was another carrier for Mersal Kabir, which probably caused a lot more damage for the French. And if another carrier is involved in Mersal Kabir, maybe another carrier is also involved in Taranto raid, or maybe more carriers involved in Taranto raid, and that would then have caused tremendous amount of damage the to the Italians, and would mean the British capital ships would be under far less stress. So she might have managed to get a refit. Or is it season premiere film Day for Mysteries of Deep? Not quite sure. Just around, Dr. Would you like to see a UAV swarm develop that can explore the interiors of sunken ships? Yes. So, if you could design a battleship for World War II using parts from any country, what would you use? Um, because they're available. I'm presuming this is parts that actually this thing. I think it's actually built. I would probably use the 16-inch guns from the US. I would use the American engines, but the King George V hull. Please note, I have a reason for that. And that would be sort of to produce the best combination. But if I could, I would actually do a World War II hybrid version of Nelson and Rodney because I think I could get something really cool then. But I would use those 60-inch guns, American engines, because I'd like the high pressure plants, please. But I'd want the British hull because I think the British armor tends to be slightly better. I don't agree with how much some people suggest it was better by, but it's just slightly better, and that's good enough for me because I think you don't turn down any advantage you can possibly have in the ships. And if you're building a hybrid ship, you might as well go with, even where it might be the marginally the best, you go with what marginally is the best. Probably a Lion style hull is what would end up being coming out. Sort of something for 9 16-inch guns. That's true. And Warspite has plot armor. Warspite has so many things. I've done you right. I have read recently about Ricklow's boilers being very advanced. When they similar to the USN's high temperature and high pressure units, in what way were they so advanced? They were the French attempt to get to the high temperature and high pressure units. I'm not sure if they were advanced as the American ones, but they were certainly interesting good. Thanks, Dr. C. Both Nelsons are in the South China Sea to fight off with the Yamato in 1942. What are their chances? What might the likely battle force between them look like? Maybe based on pre-war planning. If you've got Yamato and I don't know, somehow she ends up tagging on with both Nelsons, that's going to be a problem because her advantage is speed, so she can theoretically dictate the range unless she's got to keep coming at them. If they manage to get her in confined waters, then there's going to be an issue for her. With radar control gunnery, and you have to remember, gunnery is funnery, as according to Kate Jameson, but the funnery on HMS Rodney would not stop because that thing has radar control gunnery from quite an early on. So, yeah, that would be radar control gunnery from her and her sister. If they're there in 1942, that means they're probably there as part of Force Z in terms of which is that scenario. Then Force Z is a lot bigger. It probably has two King George V's, two Queen Elizabeths, Renown or Hood. If you know that, basically for that scenario for them to be there, you've basically had the scenario outlined earlier where Courageous and Glorious had not been lost, and the French fleet and the Italian fleet had been similarly wiped down, which would probably mean that the German fleet, Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, might well have had also been lost, and so therefore the forces necessary for preserving and protecting the domination in Europe and the Mediterranean were that much smaller, so you could send out a major task force. That's probably the options. It's an interesting one to think about. Hold on a second. Let me just try and read this. What's she doing now? Thank you, Lord. Sorry, my sister's doing something funny outside my window. I'm trying to figure out whether I need to go and help her, or whether she's... Oh, no, it's fine. No need to go help. Maybe laugh. No help. No. She's trying to wrestle with the Corgi. And the Corgi is winning. The Saffra is winning. Let's see. And Victor, yeah, I got the book, your new book yesterday. Cool. Hope you enjoyed. Frank's fun. Let's see. Where in the world does the best tea come from? No idea. Don't drink the stuff. There are a huge number of debates. My ex-girlfriend used to swear by Lady Grey, which was it Earl Grey? I think it was Earl Grey. Earl Grey. One of my best friends swears by Lady Grey, which are both things from that Twinings produce. With tea from India, I presume. Because I think that's where Twinings get their stuff from. My mum and sister used to drink, when they drank tea, used to drink Yorkshire tea, usually Yorkshire Gold. So anyway, 1970, the Iran is made aware of how World War II gets fought. What do they build for the conflict? Carriers, big ones, and probably some try and get their G3s built. They're basically, their aim would be, the admirals are now going to be massive carriers, and they're going to get their G3s built. You probably end up with about 6 of each. Maybe 8 or 9 of each if they could get their way. And if they could form a whole load of carrier battleship task carrier battle cruiser task groups. Probably want 9 of the M3s as well, just so they could have a battle fleet back home, battle fleet to go around and going, hello, yes, you've got 18-inch guns. Have you met me? I'm basically a floating piece of steel. Blimus, do you think there is any likelihood of the UK building another Queen Elizabeth class carrier, enough escort ships to service a free carrier? Or are we stuck with 2 and not enough escorts? I doubt they'd get a third Queen Elizabeth class carriers, because then they'd have to admit they made a mistake. We might get LHDs though with ski ramps. We might get enough of those to fulfill in the third carrier role. So if we get 3 of those to replace Albion, Bulwark, and Ocean, and Argus, and all that sort of stuff, then that could well cover in the role, because that would give us sort of 5 ships, which we could do 5 ships, which 5 ships of which 2 were primary air, secondary amphibious, and 3 were primary amphibious, secondary air. So you could basically always fill in the role. And as for enough escorts, well, that's going to be up to how many we build. But Wesley, did the Iron ever consider Sabre type ammunition for 15-inch guns in World War II? Not really. Don't know. You and Drac have ripped the battlecruiser indefatigable for poor coverage in the belt by the belt armor. More, I thought I've ripped it for its gun positioning, but okay, belt armor a bit. Why didn't designers add box armor around the forward and aft magazines? Seems like an easy fit. Honestly, because they were weird. They were going down a particular train of thought, and it didn't turn out to be a good place. Glenn Stewart, got a run to deal with the sort of responsibility. Good luck, Glenn. As Verdun has pointed out, extra weight would reduce the indefatigable speed, reduce their freeboard, and also might change their metacentric height, all of which you don't want. Yes, but... And you are right, but that's because they've gone down the particular route they have done in terms of their gun arrangement, etc., and organization. It's yeah. Hello, right then. Nice reading on the Hood Association website, which has changed address. It is thought to due to internal arrangement would have had the eight twin secondaries in a similar arrangement to the 4-inch guns. Would you relocate to senior officers' cabins and baths? Probably. They're quite easy to move around in comparison to things. Define weird documentary. A documentary where they at some points are acting out the events and another point are the people who are supposed to be the actors are start talking to you through breaking the third wall to have a discussion with you. It's okay. What was it about the first 2 decades of the 20th century that made technology advance so much? What's about it today? Sometimes a lot of research goes into place and suddenly things drop in, and then it's just building on that. It's a load of evolution, rapid evolution. Sometimes evolution takes centuries, sometimes it takes years. That's the other thing that proves evolution as is not a theory but is a reality. You look at how technology develops. Technology is far more of an evolutionary process than it is necessarily a designed process. For example, how different is the fundamental process in building a firearm from modern building a naval gun? Well, you know how I've said in the past, if you're building a turreted weapon, one gun is one set of problems. Twin, twice as many problems. 3, 4 times as many problems. 4, 16 times as many problems. That's pretty much what you're dealing with as the difference of your little individual firearm versus a ship's gun. So fundamentally, you could make the case that it's a similar process, but it's the similar process in terms of building a rowing boat versus building a cruise liner. They are both vessels which float on water, and you have a similar assembly process in terms of the blocking. But the complexity and no one would actually really go for them being the same. Hmm. Interesting article. I'd have to consider that one. About 23 knots on the baseline for speed. As the rest of the Iron's armored cruisers. Any displacement spare could be used for more armor or a slightly smaller ship. Probably be used for more speed. Wouldn't the Iron avoid a typhoon in the first place? And has anyone ever tried to fight a battle during a storm, typhoon, hurricane? A lot, and I'd let you. Kate Jameson is hopefully going to be answering that question at some point. Angel, pardon me if I'm mistaken, but wouldn't it be an automatic gun loading system for a larger gun? Possibly require a sliding breech block system and brass cartridges for the propellant. Wouldn't pardon me if I'm mistaken, but wouldn't an automatic loading gun system for a larger gun possibly compulsory require a sliding breech block system and a brass cartridge propellant? Broadly speaking, there are workarounds for that. The sliding breech, not necessarily. You need some mechanism to slide it in, but doesn't seem to be necessarily be a sliding breech. Have you ordered food? No, I haven't. And I do need to order food because it's now 9 o'clock and it's a Sunday and all the places closed down. So just let me order some food. Food. What am I ordering? Oh, that's always a problem. What do I want to order? Oh, I don't want pizza. Yeah, I don't feel like that. Honestly, the thing is, I both feel hungry and don't feel like eating. That's my trouble. I've done all the driving and everything else today. Been up and too active, brain's going. No, I can't go to them because they don't like the smell. That's the one I can only order from when my family's not at home. Diddy. And that. Let's see what's the options are. And let's see what I will order. What will I order? Already had a burger today, so that unfortunately rules out anything like that. And I'm avoiding KFC because, well, my local KFC is not a particularly good example of a KFC. There are some very nice KFCs in the world. My local one doesn't seem to ever produce anything without some weird bits going in it. Okay, what am I ordering? I'm not allowed pasta. Didn't someone recommend earlier kebab? Yeah. That's what I think I'll order. Yeah, I'll order that. Right, that's on its way. I think. He says he thinks. Crossing fingers. Food is on its way. I did say this will be till the brew runs out, and I will keep my word. It'll be till the brew runs out. Right. Let's get back to the questions quickly. Yeah. Food is ordered and on way. That'll be good. Clearly, clearly the solution to naval gunfire spawning is almighty Blackburn. Oh, good lord. Cosmos, who's the most underrated maritime-orientated sovereign? Probably Henry VII, because he does a lot more work about it really than his son in terms of building infrastructure. Jonah, hey Dr. Clarke, could we see Sal as a possible new permanent member to the Beltron crew? We're hoping to have him on this week, so new permanent member, probably not, because he's very, very busy. And it would be kind of interesting to permanently work in the time zones, but he's invited back as often as we can have him because we do like having him on. Zabton, did I mishear you, or did you still have Pearson on the brain? It sounded like you said Toronto, not Toronto. Probably still do have Pearson on the brain. Plebiscite, Sliding Breach would be faster than a Screw type, but I'm not sure it would be that much faster. And the other parts of the system would probably be the limiting factors. And Screw can take the pressure slightly better, and you can automate the Screw process pretty fairly well. Wasn't sure if I'd ask this, but what would it take to make the original weapon loadout for the Admiral class and modified deck armor design work? Makes the decision to do G3 instead of 2 free and subclass Admirals reasonable and correct decision. Honestly, it didn't really work in the first place. So they really should have changed things, but they didn't. But Coaster, how viable do you think a ship would be with modern weapons and a tribal hull? Not that viable because it'd be very small. Basically, would be an OPV in terms of its sort of operational fit, and very crew intensive for its size. Next one, does see if the swordfish sortie from the first sortie from the first okay, had to hit the Bismarck. I hit a is what I meant to ask in terms of how the bell develops from there. The earlier she gets hit, the earlier she's in trouble. As I've been over before, a surface raider is fine as long as she isn't injured. But the moment she's injured, she's wounded, and she's got no support. That's the reality of being a surface raider. As long as you're fine, you're a threat. This is the great problem for the Grass Bay, because people go, oh, well, she was hit mostly by 6-inch fart. Yeah. What did that wreck? Oh, her fresh water units. Yeah, you're going to do a long-range voyage in a ship with no fresh water. Even if you've got diesel engines, you still need the fresh water things. Graham Hanna, surely if Toronto had gone differently, Hood might not have been hunting Bismarck. It might have been Warspite Malaya. That is what I've said in the past, and I would stand by that. You put them where you need them. And in which case, if she's got Warspite and Malaya after her, Bismarck might well be in a very different scenario. Because also, again, if you've got the facts, if let's say Taranto has enough carriers that de facto for 6 to 18 months, if not a couple of years, the Italian fleet's reduced to 1 or 2 battleships, which are their older ones, then the R-Class can do the job in the Mediterranean. If the R-Class can do the job in the Mediterranean, then the ships that are going to be facing off against on the home fleet are probably going to be the Queen Elizabeth class, especially the modified ones. Does lead to an interesting scenario where you might get the slowest ships in the home fleet being being Nelson and Rodney, which means they might end up on escort duty over the convoys, which could also change some plans, because there are many who might say that a Bismarck could fight an R-Class, and they could, and could probably win, but the R-Class would inflict a huge amount of damage as it was doing it. But I don't think there's anyone who'd really say that a Bismarck or Tirpitz would really want to actually engage actively Hood, Rodney or Nelson. They're just not ships they want to engage. They won't win, and they will get obliterated. They might well do enough damage that Nelson and Rodney get hurt. That's if they can keep firing that long, but those things are pretty much floating lumps of iron. It's not going to happen quickly. So basically their main thing will be to avoid any convoy which has them nearby. That's good. My avatar is the hider funnel. Cool. Alfred B228. Hello, Alfred. I know your Wichita had teething problems and some balance issues, but Wichita had been a class of several warships. But if the Witcher had been a class of several ships, would that have been solved in the following ships? Yes. Lions, is the corgi feeling better? Broadly speaking, the corgi is complaining less, but the poodle is now ill because the poodle now has double ear infections. I'm not going down the GDB rabbit hole. I'm curious about why the shooter on the US carrier touches the deck first, then points to the bow to launch the plane. Why touch deck? I've googled, but no answer. Do you know? Stupid question. Right. So I've had 3 stories over the years. One of them was it was for luck. It was a traditional for luck one. 2, it was to ground themselves when they're giving the when they're about to give the orders and check the deck. And 3, and this is the most sensible one, is it's a visible signal that the deck is clear. So touching the deck to show the deck's clear, and then saying you can go. Deck is clear, you can go. And basically it shows it. But I'm honestly not sure which of those 3 is true, and I haven't really inquired enough to find out because I haven't thought about it, honestly. It hasn't been something that I've thought really much. So, what do you say to people that call ski ramps cope slopes? I've never heard anyone call it that. There are many things you can call the ski ramps, but they help. So, no, what is the RN's obsession with ski ramps? They seem to be pretty lackluster, plus terrible compatible with the rest of NATO. 1, lots of NATO can actually use them because anyone who has the F-35B or the Harrier could use them. 2, they have ski ramps because if you basically are operating an aircraft like the B variant or the Harrier missile aircraft, they can dramatically increase the amount their load when they're taking off. And 3, it's actually a very efficient, very quick method of getting aircraft into the air. So if you're not going to be able to build a Cadavar carrier, Stovel and ski ramps works best. Stovel and flat decks, it comes a very poor long way third. That's why it's not just the RN which has the ski ramps. And then, of course, you have people like Australia, which has the ski ramps, but they don't actually have the ski ramp aircraft or fitted or any accoutrements inside the ship to support ski ramp aircraft. Dr. C? What was the first CV to feature the ski ramp? That's an interesting question. I think Albion on Bulwark had one also. But it might have been. Let's see. It might have been. Well, there is always the fact that they always try and put it on HMS Furious, but honestly, it's really the modern design comes from 1973, which was I think a PhD, MPhil or PhD thesis from memory. But I'm looking in my notes. I think it might have been Hermes, which was refitted with it, but I think it might have been Hermes because she gets refitted with one, I think, with a ski ramp. So I think it might have been Hermes. But the first one's built with it, of course, with the Invincible class. But I think it was actually it was Hermes. But there are lots of people now rushing to tell me HMS Furious, I'm sure. But no, that was basically a random fitting to try and get Barracudas off the deck. That wasn't really the ski as we understand it. T is less of an obsession for the RN than it is for the Army. Yeah. Brian 419. Hi, Brian. Dr. Clarke, I've often read that the 12-inch guns used on the Alaska class had penetrating characteristics similar to much larger 16-inch weapons. How true is this? Scaled? If you scale them, yes, they have penetration characteristics. But it's basically, it usually comes, the people who are often making a big fuss of that are usually the same people who are trying to claim they're battle cruisers when they are just large cruisers. They're very good large cruisers, they're very capable large cruisers, but that's the thing is, as I've often explained, that's because the treaty cruisers were all based and limited on a light cruiser design, so no one has an idea of actually really what a heavy cruiser would have looked like, a true heavy cruiser. And my view is it would have looked something like the Alaska class by World War II if there was a true heavy cruiser being built, because it makes sense, because your capital ships are getting 40,000 ton plus. In no way, shape. Traditionally, here's the interesting thing: in lots of periods, cruisers actually were bigger and heavier than battleships, and not to be as well armored. But that's because they were long-range cruising ships. They were for going around the world. They had those jobs to do. So they exchanged armor for armor density in terms of for their size, their speed, and their long-range operations. So the concept that a cruiser has to be smaller than a capital ship is a bit strange. But leaving that to one side, limiting them to less than a third of the size of your capital ships, well, that's meaning you're always producing pretty much light cruisers or smaller vessels in that spectrum because they're not traditionally that much smaller. So, yeah, issues. Issues and issues. But no, the 16 inch is a far more powerful weapon. GDM, has a naval historian written on the Roman Navy on the Limes, particularly in Pannonia? Roman Navy, you want to go to Simon Elliott's books. If anyone's covered it, I think he might have done. It would have been him. I think he has, but I can't remember which one of his books. But he's done a lot of books on the Roman Navy. Simon Elliott is pretty much the best on them. Oh, Dodge C, can you go into great depth in about the second cert? It feels like the Iron Samal, but I can't find much info about it. I'm planning on doing an actual video about second battle cert at some point, probably later in the year. So I'll leave it up for that. But also, we'll probably be talking about it when I'm tomorrow on Armchair Admirals. So Armchair Admirals is tomorrow evening, and probably going to be talking about it then. No, Brian Foreman and Church Chicken. We don't have Church's Chicken. I have to say, that's the thing I miss about going to America because I haven't been to America in a while. It was fun going to Canada. We went to the original House of the Buffalo Wings, which was a really nice place to go because they produce decent boneless wings, and boneless wings in the UK are never as good. You're just going, oh. Whereas the boneless wings in America are actually fairly decent, and in Canada are quite nice as well. But no, it's interesting. It's a case of going. One of the things I like visiting foreign countries is going into their various fast food outlets and seeing what the difference is. Because I often find that most of the it's going to sound terrible, but Okay, so here's the thing. When you're an academic of a certain level of notoriety, and when you're or even better, when you're traveling with academics of a certain level of notoriety, people always presume that what you want to do is go to a very fancy restaurant. Honestly, we don't, but we actually like this is going to sound strange, the middle of the road restaurants and sort of slightly better ones than that sometimes, but not the really, really highfalutin ones. So when someone takes me to those, the middle of the road, slightly higher ones, those ones, they're really, really nice. I'm always happy to go into those. But the really, really posh, formal ones with very small portions, you sort of go into them and go, you could be anywhere in the world. You're not anything about the locality. You're not. But in my experience, there's the chain restaurants, which are the ones sort of middle and slightly low there, which are, again, you could be anywhere in the world. But the fast food outlets, they will tell you where you are in the world, and the restaurants, which are middle, slightly above, we all know what sort of restaurants those are. They're the ones which also tell you where you are in the world. So there are sort of the two groups of restaurants which are they could be anywhere in the world. They are just so they're so reproducible in terms of things. And then there are the two groups which tell you where you are in the world. So those are the two groups I usually like to go to. For anyone in the workout regime, try the 12-egg day diet. It works if you don't, and if you like eggs. If you don't like eggs, no. Sorry. Don't. I'm not a fan of eggs. Spent too much time around chicken farms. How much of the brew we have seen the shelf? Um, I'm not sure what that question is. Mr. Richards getting a joker. Hello. Oh, good lord. Oh, I'm almost caught up. I think. No, I haven't. I'm a long way away. Hello, Gagolanda. Hello, Syrinja. Hello, thank you. Now, Tyrion, what was the original plan armor for the Admiral class that you could never get it, that meant you could never get it to work? Oh, it's going to sound strange. The plan armor for the original plan armor for the Admiral class doesn't actually change much. The 8-inch, the 15-inch guns doesn't change much. That's pretty much it. But what's the thing for the admirals is the armor and working out the armor schemes and keep moving around to try and make the armor schemes work. And the speed. Because everything's governed by the speed. So it'd been far better to turn them all into aircraft carriers. Honestly, it would have been far better to build the admirals as aircraft carriers. I mean, you just think about what you could have done with those hulls from the when they were built up. Wookie wonders, could the Iron order some more Type 45s with a hull extension to have an extra VLS system? Why? And I mean that in a positive way. The Type 45 is a lovely design, but it's now out of date in terms of construction. We're looking to build a Type 83. We're currently building the Type 26 and Type 31, which is maxing out our yard capacity, so we'd have to get another yard tuned up. How many more vessels would we build? What kind of life would they have? Is it better to just churn out Type 26 and Type 31 slightly more quickly and then build a Type 83 with even more VLS? Probably more sensible to do that route. Because there's also the fact that nothing is more expensive than churning up a yard and then cutting it down. We don't have enough production at the moment. The government aren't going to give us the money to run the production to keep 3 yards building ships. So that means basically the Type 26 yard is going to become the Type 45 yard, Type 83 yard when it's built, when it's finished. So expect that. And the Type 31 is going to churn out the 32, the 33, the 34, the 35, the 36, 37, 38, 39. And then they're going to have to figure out what's the next number they're going to jump to. But they'll just keep churning out batches of light frigates to just keep a light frigate yard going, which will cover for the gaps when the major yard, which is doing the major surface combatant, is completely how do I put this, changing over and swamped. Theoretically. But churning up a yard to build more Type 45s sounds like a nice idea. It doesn't work in practice. In practice, it would be incredibly expensive, and you would get very few ships. However, conversely, did I want to see the original 9 ships built? Yes. Did I want to see all the ships built with the Mark 41 VLS added in it? Yes. Did I therefore want those Mark 41 VLSs built and used for this role? Yes. Because I think it would have been made sense for the Type 45 to be being built more general purpose from the beginning. And I think if you built all 9 and you'd given them all the Mark 41 VLS, they'd have been useful. Hey, let's see. Right. For example, what was your opinion of the CVLs in the Pacific? How well did the IJN use them versus the USN? Were they worth it? CVLs are always worth it because they give you an extra decks. I'd say the USN uses them actually better than the IGN, but the USN are using them to fill in places, and they have a lot more of them to use, whereas the IGN are just going and using them. So the IGN often are having to use CVLs in places where, frankly, you prefer to be using CVs. And that's the thing. The Americans have the advantage of choice and selection. The Japanese are using what's available, which goes with what I'm always trying to tell people. You fight the wars with what you have. You fight battles with what you have available, not what you want and not what you wish. Google on that. Hi, Doc. Kindred 5 is often criticized for being undergunned with 14-inch guns. Given the amount of engagement one knocking out the fire control radar, wasn't the RN right going with volume for fire? You can make that case, but the trouble is, and this is the point, I am very much against Top Trump's history. I get very annoyed when I hear Top Trump's discussions. In fact, today at Tankfest, I have to admit that I was sitting there going, oh, yeah, what are you comparing these two and what are your situation you're putting this thing in? But leaving that to one side, they did a very good job. Tankfest was a lot of fun. It's just, I can see why they've got. My brain doesn't work well with the scenarios they were chucking up for people's interest, which were lovely. But the trouble is, with knowing the history and knowing context and nuance, I was in there going, that scenario doesn't work. Oh no, and they're just crying internally. But the thing is, mm, how do I put this politely? Uh, when you're dealing with a capital ship, it's a capital asset. It's a statement of your national intent. And honestly, that would be like going for 14-inch guns rather than 16 was. It'd be equivalent to. I put this politely. Okay. So. Let's say you've got a sports star on a sports team. And not talking about French ones because they always have terrible cars. But let's say we're British, it's a football, or what Americans, strange enough, call soccer. I'm still not quite sure why, but it's football. Team. And they're all, you're looking at the players. They turn up in big Range Rovers, this car, that car. And then someone turns up in a Mazda MX-5. Now, Mazda MX-5 is a perfectly good, in fact, a lovely car. I'd love it dearly. But everyone's going to look at that guy and go, you don't exactly fit in. Are you sure you're a footballer? And it's that sort of issue. Okay? It's a case of it doesn't look right. And it doesn't look right when compared to the 16, 18-inch guns, even the 15-inch guns. The 15-inch, the 15-inch 42 always comes off better in the histories when people are talking about it, than the 14-inch 45, despite probably the 45 being just as fine. Basically, the British could have got away with 15-inch 45. They could have got away with that. But the 14-inch was never going to be a one to get away with. Graham Hunter, in that scenario with Rodney and Nelson on escort duty, the twins and Bismarck and Turbot's might have spent a lot of time running away. They would have spent a lot of time running away because of turning up and going, okay, but what happened? But actually, there was an interesting scenario where I think we were discussing about this on bilge pumps, and we were talking about if that happened, the odds on Rodney turning herself into making herself look like a merchant ship till they got nice and close, sort of rigging the ship with canvas like they do for formal occasions and making herself look like some form of cargo carrying ship and sailing and happily going along. And they don't see under the canvas the guns are tracking them. And then whoosh comes down the canvas. 16-inch guns, boom, bye-bye. Never count that out as a scenario. It's Rodney. Guys, wasn't the idea that behind an escorting R is that versus Bismarck, the German had range and speed advantage, so she could pound it, and they didn't have range advantage. And well, it's not a pragmatic. It's going some range. You can say you have a theoretical range advantage. Yes, we have, but in pragmatical terms, in actual firing ranges, they're broadly speaking similar. In actual what they'd be firing at, and so she couldn't pound the R of impunity and not get into firing range with Murchys. They couldn't do that. That's the point. And the speed advantage is great. It means she can get away and choose to fight. But that also that the thing is, the R's not going to chase after her. Remember, the R's going to sit with the merchant ships. So you're going to have to go to the R, and that's the point. There's a very different scenario. There's the chase scenario works when your opponent is going to chase you. If your opponent decides to stay and not chase, then you have to go to them. It's the way you get out, you stop deciding the range advantage because, I'm keeping away from you, so I've got the range advantage. That's good. We're not accelerating or chasing you. You can sit at maximum range if you want, but your guns aren't going to do that much damage to me at maximum range. You're not going to pummel me at maximum range. I'm a quite heavily armored ship. Take care, Danny Wright. Let's be on the internet. Hello, thank you. Crazy out of all idea. With the advent of VTOL capable combat cable aircraft, could a modern version of a Kiev be available for small navies? 10 to 15 aircraft and a bunch of CRS, CRAM, and VLS. Honestly, it's going to be interesting to see what the Japanese and the Koreans end up knocking out. Richards, if the big fleets worldwide went to war tomorrow, how many aircraft carriers would the major fleets have available for deployment? British could probably get together one as long as the Americans offered some F-35s. The Americans could get 6 or probably would have about 6 available actually of their fleet, broadly speaking. The Chinese would have 1 available. The French would have none available tomorrow. To my knowledge. The Italians and the Spanish. Well, the Italians will have 1. I'm not sure about the Spanish having anything. The Australians will have an LHD available, but it doesn't carry any fixed-wing aircraft. Other than that, yeah, pretty much that's where you've got it. The Russians, the carriers are not available. The Turks don't have one yet. I'm not sure what the Taiwan's doing at the moment. I don't know if it's available or sort of what it's doing. Japanese probably could get 2 of their LPHs available, but not their carrier, because they haven't got the F-35Bs for it or it operating. Frank Soda, Dusty, what do you want a new RN to LHE to look like? A Trieste, but just a tad bigger. Kahan, it's a nice meeting you today. Also, how are you home already? I left at about 4 o'clock and drove straight home. And may or may not have stopped. So my mum may or may not be slightly annoyed with me. Because she believes you should stop after every hour of driving. I filled up the car when I got to half a tank. Right. Andrew Paul. Okay, well, Jinx. Yeah, Furious is technically the first, but I really feel it's more Hermes. President Dusty, using your knowledge of dockyards, how would you apply that to space docks? What would be the real limits on both their construction and the ships they'd like to be building? Strange enough, that theoretically, okay. So their limits depend on how you're building them, and how I would build a space dock would be I would hollow out an asteroid. If I was building it, that's what I'd use. That's the easiest way to build the structure I need for a space dock. Take an asteroid, hollow it out. Use mining and just sort of suitable nickel iron heavy asteroid that's suitably solid and hollow it out. And probably I would need multiple docks because I need a dock which was my construction dock, but I'd also need a dock to bring in materials and a manufacturing facility, etc. But yeah, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be using an asteroid. But it depends. If you want to build something more, you could build it entirely yourself artificially. Again, you could build those huge ring constructs around the planet, which there is a movie coming about the idea at some point. Having a ring or a construct around the planet can be very helpful. It can also be for construction. It can also be very complicated and put in. But it's working out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and that's going to affect your size you're going to use. But what? Excuse me, delivery driver. Hello. And number 10. If you leave it there, someone will come get it. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. It's nice. Delivery. Aaron. Honourable, in reference to ski ramps, why have the British carriers traditionally gone with ski ramps that doesn't cover the full width of deck? Hence, compare Invincible with Vicar and Order 1, Carlos, not 1. Mainly because of A, flight deck management, but also because of the way the British structure their flight operations, it makes more sense to go with the decks, the ski ramp shape we would go with. Nice. Why is it so hard to make a decent record? Make a record of the ship sunk by USS Enterprise? Because there is a dispute over some of the ships which were sunk over which carriers aircraft actually did the sinking and killing blow. Greenland, do you think the upcoming movie Devotion will accurately portray the Korean War era USN carrier operations? Next question. um, Honestly, I'm always amazed by various things. Hi, Garius. Hello, Gary Britt. In Hearts of Iron 4, Graf Space, Shear, and Lutzow are heavy cruisers. Felt appropriate. That does feel appropriate, yes. Mm. Do you? It does feel appropriate. Yes, and I Fleet Tracker had open source info on US and deployments. It does. Thanks for Dr. C. Thanks for the armchair animals up there. I forgot they still make those. We do. Anok, boneless wings are glorified chicken nuggets. They are far better than a chicken nugget, and they're glorious. What about Chinese? My two favorite Chinese is the smells object to by my two mum and sister. So when they are out, then me and the dogs have Chinese food, and they enjoy it. So need for speed and armor dictate how hoods end up. Yeah, speed is armor is present, isn't it? Not so much speed is armor, but speed is strategic utility. Remember, the reason why the British are building battle cruisers in the late end part of the World War One, i.e., the admirals and the G3s, is nothing to do with World War One. Has everything to do with a future conflict they look coming. Let's be honest. World War One has ended the German Navy, i.e., the North Sea threat. So now they're looking at any future naval warfare is going to be a war of maneuver and is going to be over the greater distances. And let's be honest, that's more like the first phase of World War One in terms of the wider ocean war, where the battle cruisers were key. So basically, that's what they're building a fleet for. What would be the a war based, which was be like the early phase of the wider area operations of World War One, which they're not too wrong on. Let's be honest. When we look at World War Two, if you discount the North Sea Jutland part of it, World War Two does turn out very similar in some respects to what were the wider area operations of World War One. Can't go Type 83 and LHD in the same yard? No, the LHD would have to be built in a different yard. Probably Harlan Wolf or Camel Laird's for its size. Paul Johnson still can't see the shelf being cleared for your model railway in timescale. The plan is hopefully next weekend. Hopefully next weekend I get to set up the facilities to store the stuff outside, move the stuff outside, finish the building, put in all the final bookshelves, store the books, and re-solidify the bookshelves, put the bookshelves up on those walls, and yeah, build everything out. And then once I've done that, it's cleared the space for the new computers to arrive, and hopefully this table for the railway. Do you think the US should have built the Super Tomcat instead of Super Hornet? If dreams made it so. Hmm. Check right. A crowd of tank enthusiasts and not hearing top Trump's discussions would be rare. Oh, it was disturbing. And the amount of people going, oh, the Sherman, the terrible Sherman. I'm going, the Sherman was not terrible. It was actually reliable and worked. Here's a thing. Here's a concept for you. Reliability is a technological top trumps. Because here is the thing: if you have 20 tigers and I have 20, and for the same cost, I can produce, let's say, 60 Sherman. Let's say, It's actually different than that. Okay. So you have 20 tigers. I have 60 Sherman. Your tigers are amazing. But let's say your tigers run at. Let's be nice. Let's say they run at 40% operating, right? So 40% availability of your 10 tigers. Cute. That means you have 8 available. The odds are my Shermans run at 80% available. So that means I will have 64. So I will have 8 times, from 80, well, hang on, it's from 60. I will have 48. If I have 48 Sherman to your 8 Tigers, the odds are my Sherman wipe out your Tigers. Because the odds are, hello, you come to say hello. You have. But you didn't bring food with you. He didn't bring food with him. It's at the front door. I sent you a message. Well, you dropped off a fluffy research assistant. Don't worry, carry on. Be fine. Don't worry, sis. Don't worry. Hello, you're gorgeous. You want to come with my lap, do you? Okay. You can come with my lap. Oh, you missed your papa. Have I been away this weekend? Yeah. Right. I'm being submerged by a fluffy research assistant. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Nice hearing. Why did the British build so many pre-dreadnoughts? Because the British just like building ships. It's their standard thing for economic times and for also showing how powerful they are without actually having to fight a war. Build a lot of ships. Aren't warships bound by the limitations at the time of their design? Well, considering when you're building a warship, you're constantly hey, okay. You're constantly building new limitations. What's that about? There you go. Is that a big enough lap for you? That big enough lap for you? Oh, good lord. Are you trying to drink iron brew now? Because you high on iron brew is not something I want to deal with. Hello. You happy? I'm feeling better now. Okay. You're sick. I've been telling everyone how sick you are and how your ears are hurting. And now you look at you. Sitting in here like butter wouldn't melt. I know. Ooh. What are you up to? You're off down there. Ooh. Those parts are attached to me, you realise? They are. Can't get the service these days. The fluffy research assistant is mauling, is hurting me, and the humans are just not delivering food or anything. It's just terrible. Can't get the service. Oh God, I'm gonna pay for it later on. I have to rebuild her office again. So please don't think she's not being my servant for no reason. I'm having to rebuild her desk again. That's a big cargo ship, yes. So what would happen if the UK could have produced ships thrice as fast as it did in real life in the 30s and 40s? The world would have been full of a lot of ships. They could produce them 3 times as fast. There'd been a lot of carriers built, and there'd been a lot of capital ships built.
Dinner.
Thank you. Very kind of you.
Would you like to come help the washing?
No. Oh, good. No, you're not allowed any. And oh, they put peppers in again. I keep trying to get them out of this one. I keep trying to be healthy and sneak veg in my food. Gogolena, are you trying to make a version of Nobody Expects Spanish Inquisition of Nelmrods? No, but that would be a movie I would pay to watch. Meeting Drac at Tank Fest is one of the fun experiences because he's in full. I would call this full engineering nerding out mode, and I'm really, really happy. Mhm. Reckon you play football or at the Super Bowl? You play soccer everywhere. No, you play football everywhere. You play soccer in the States. Even the Australians have the thing of calling it Australian football or things. She also called US football with rugby with body armor. Well, Draconhead, I'm not going to say it, but if the shoe fits. And I don't think the Nelrods need to take down a campus. The first hour would move it out with accelerity. Potentially. Hmm. Thanks for the science secretary. Just understanding an idea. Design small UVs under 1,000 kilograms and use Type 26 hull as a drone carrier. Also include a dock for underwater drones. They're already doing pretty much that, let's be honest. That's going to be a lot of space on the Type 26 for drones. Um, so what was your mum's reaction to me driving around 6 hours and no stop there? We haven't told her. Next one, Dodge C. Can you please get, although I will tell you, Stafford, that I think the box might be pertinently nicked by her because you made a lovely box. Stafford made a lovely wooden box for me. Which I brought home and I was carefully working out what's going to. And a box which was storing some stuff for my granddad's and my grandma's for my mum disintegrated. And I said, well, why didn't you use the box? Well, as I've not figured it out, and this is a very good sturdy box, whereas that was in a cardboard box with lots of lining, put it in the box until I figured out what I'm going to put with it, because I'm not going to figure it out after I've resorted out my office and worked out where it's going to sort of sit and how it's going to be used. Because I want to do it once I've got everything organised. And she went, and I think I might have lost the box. I think in my generosity I might have lost it, but she does say it's very lovely. Um, one time she loses her bow into a torpedo Eskimo. Second time she loses it bashing into another destroyer. Third time she has it rearranged by a cruiser. Doesn't lose the whole bow. Just has it basically a nose job. By her comparative standards. So that one's sort of, it's a debate whether she loses her bow or not in that scenario. I tend to explain it as a third time, but I was told for my book I couldn't include it as a third time because it didn't quite count. It might sound it might be get me accused of hyperbole. Asteroids are really hard to cut. Blacksmiths I know have nickel iron meteorite, and they just burn through metal to blaze. I know, and I do agree on asteroids, but That's also an advantage if they're really hard to cut, because that means that your lovely floating dock in space is going to be really hard for anyone to hurt. Awesome. Read Type 26 UAVs and Karen recent Ukraine events. I suggest that UAV data links is more vulnerable than we know it's for. It's always going to be vulnerable. The communication section of anything is always going to be vulnerable. How you get around it is going to be interesting, especially when you're dealing with the powers that might be involved in this sort of scenario. Nathan, I also wondered how or what you could change on the 1942 light fleet carrier design so that they would be better adapted to Cold War era. Lengthen them. That's the easiest thing. If you could add in an extra 10 or so meters, you would make yourself a life a lot easier. Sorry. Manners I know, but I'm hungry. Enjoyable. If one was to list the 5 or 10 best destroyer designs in service today, no design phase ships, being keeping our experience in consideration, which designs to be looking at? You'd be looking at the Bergs, you'd be looking at a lot of the Japanese designs. You're probably looking at the Zhejiang the Greats. Type 55s and 52Ds probably. But I prefer the 52C honestly to the 52D, but we'll leave that one side. Zumwalts are probably going to be in there at some point. Type 45s will be in there. That's pretty much going to be your list of destroyers at the moment. The Germans, the Russians don't have any destroyer design. That's actually in service. The French don't really. I know people might make the claim of the Horizon class frigate. Sorry, hair. But yeah, it's not really. It's a destroyer. It's a frigate. That was the whole reason the British left the program and went for the Type 45. Enjoy the raspberry bushes, McDevitt. The most photogenic member of the Clarke family. The fluffy researcher. Yes, he does like that. He was researching the food. He's always researching the food. He's a poodle. They're constantly hungry. They're like Labradors, but with better PR. So anyway, what would a 1920s Great Eastern Carrier version look like? New engines and new screws. Interesting, but a bit narrow beam. Well, it's still good. I don't know, does the UK still have shipbuilding capacity anymore? Yes, but that capacity is mostly orientated around building oil rigs, trawlers, oil rig support vessels, and very specialist ships. And did I mention trawlers? A lot of trawlers. We churn out a huge number of trawler-sized vessels and lifeboats. Mr. Ryan, how likely is it that the West will break ground on new dry docks and shipyards and dry docks? You actually want to get elected democratic governments to invest in infrastructure they may not see the benefit of in an election cycle. They would need to have guns pointing at their heads. In the metaphorical sense, at least. Right, so let's see. At what point in World War II did the Irons slow down their warship construction? They didn't. They shifted it from capital ships to everything else, capital ships and carriers to everything else at the beginning, thanks to a guy called Churchill making that decision. And then shortly, then they shifted it back, but they never really cut it down. They just constantly were building it right up until the end. You don't stop building until the war's over. And thanks. Take care, Gunlander. Yes, I'm for tanker. Dimensional look up. Someone who sent. Oh, one guy said he spent an afternoon under his burning M4 and the ammo didn't cook off, so he could tell. A US historian told almost all diesel M4 went to the USSR. Karen met and his wife. I'm presuming this is you and Drac. Meeting Drac and his wife twice. Spent an hour and a half nerding out with them. I was so happy. They are great. Pardon me. I spent more of the day actually, I think, with Mrs. Drac than with Drac. He had important demands on his time, and she was showing me around, going, "Oh, come see this, come see that," and she's wonderful. So it looks like you got more sun today. Yes, I did get more sun today. I also got more sun yesterday. Honestly, I got more sun yesterday because I ran out of what's it called, of sun cream yesterday, and I bought some more today. So I was using that quite liberally. So that helped me a bit. Nathan, hello. The 52Ds are the comprehensive upgrade of the 52C. It's what the plan calls a target ship. Yes, I agree, but for some reason I just prefer the 52C. I do not know why it is. Having looked at them as closely as I have, I like it better. It's kind of like why I prefer the Renowns over Hood. I just do. I know one's better on paper, but I know which one I like best. Let's see. Do you consider the Hobarts and the Spain F-100 ships as a destroyer frigate? Pass. Light destroyer, maybe. Jack Ray, what was the typical split of the time at sea, at port, and otherwise training in any given year from 1920s, 30s UK cruiser? Like one third, one third, one third? Pretty much. pretty much. Any time they were at sea, they would be conducting training. Tin Richards, why did Roma sink when hit by a Fritz, but Warspite survived? Luck. It's where the bomb actually hit. That's the thing. It's where the bomb hits and where it damages. It's like with Taranto. Those torpedoes shift them around a bit. Some of those ships sink very quickly. How many trawlers are sponsored for the RN for rapid war use? None at the moment. Well, to be honest, if we consider it, trawlers have proved rather dangerous for nuclear submarines in the Cold War period, although Cold War submarines have also proved rather dangerous as trawlers by getting caught in their nets. For example, how often does a new weapon need to be sold to other ships until Dr. Fleet War? Just read that Admiral Lee had to sell the idea of putting proximity fuse AHLs on other ships. Usually you sell it in a nice way. That's a scenario with the Bureau of Ordnance, so that's them. In the UK, you'd write to the Admiralty, say this idea works. The Admiralty would go, "Good, it does. You've got evidence. Fine, it's fleet standard." Especially if you were an admiral of Lee's rank. If you were a more junior officer, it gets more complicated, but you know. And Roma got hit by 2 Fritz X. That does tend to have an impact. Hmm. So apparently, so apparently Austria has the rank of admiral in armed forces. Yes. On the same level as colonel and commands the riverine forces. Yes. Why are they called an admiral, not a commodore? I suppose once you're dealing with that, you must well. So I presume all the ships in command of the riverine forces are commanded by majors and lieutenant colonels. That was nice. Sorry, I keep seeming to eat with my mouth and talking with my mouth open. I've forgotten. I mean, eating my mouth open because I keep going to talk and then remembering I'm eating and going, ooh, no, shouldn't. Hello. No, I didn't give you any chicken. But you can have a biscuit because I know that's what you really want. Answer Paul, what is the feasibility of cruiser ships these days to have some protective systems added on in times of war? Well, you must remember cruise ships used to be able to do it because they had a lot of deck space. And it was at points at which you could add weight. Most these days, cruise ships have the deck space very high up in the ship, where you can't really add a lot of top weight. So it would be interesting. Nice hearing. Would N3 have adopted the G3 gun layout, including an amidships turret? Why was it put in the most pointless turret known to mankind position? I have no idea, no idea, no idea. Actually, no, I do. It's a very efficient engineering idea. And it's a great sort of compromise from an engineering perspective, but I have a feeling it would have shifted forward. They could have done it it will probably end up being a sort of Nelson and Rodney rather than an F3 design, but I can always hope for an F3 design. Nathan, what are your thoughts on newly launched Type 003 carrier? Please see bilge pumps. Joseph, considering what the Irish fishing fleet did to the Russians, what the Icelandic fishermen did during the God Wars, trawlers can be very effective. They can be very, very effective. Hello, you. Doggy does want chicken wing. Know any good ebooks on US battleships? No. Most of my books are not of the, on terms of history, are not of the ebook variety. Mainly because I have to go through them quite heavily. Frank Simon, .c, were the Titanic class designed to feature cannon like 6-inch guns? If so, where? They weren't designed with it in mind, but they certainly could have had them fitted in the similar spaces as other cruise liners would have them fitted. And those would be on various positions as open deck space. Hello, yes, you want constant patting. You need constant patting and attention. That's what you're after, are you? Constant patting and a constant fuss and love. Hello. Right, so let's see. How important is turning radius? Tight turning radius. If you're doing anti-submarine warfare, incredibly important. If you're doing air defense, not as important. Basically, it depends on what your role is. Hey. What was that about? What do you want? You want to go chasing things in the garden, You can't. You've got bad ears. And you know you can't. You asked to come down with Papa, so you came down with Papa. You have to behave yourself. Because I'm not going to let you out there because it's more than my life's worth. It is. And I can't keep giving you biscuits to make you happy. You think I couldn't keep giving you biscuits to make you happy? You basically would eat the entire pot of biscuits, which are not good for you. They're not. You might not understand it, but I know it is not good for you. Now, I've given you as many as I have because I also know someone hasn't eaten his food today and has been pretending to be off his kibble. Oh, yes, you can try. But just because I've been away doesn't mean I don't know what's going on here. Yes, I do. Yeah. There you go. You can come here and be patted. Customer, since you're willing to tell us which historical years particularly you are least impressed by, there are so many. There are also, please note, I'm also would quite happy to go through the least impressive British ones, American ones, French ones, German ones, Italian ones. I can even do a line in Japanese ones, but my knowledge isn't as conclusive, so I haven't studied them enough to be able to really sure that I am picking out the genuinely the worst examples of their leadership. But in terms of the best one and nicest way, I think it's well known who my favorite US president is. He's the one called Teddy Roosevelt. And that's not just because he ran for the Bull Moose Party. Which, come on! You want to vote for a Bull Moose Party. We all do. John, did I get your signature? I think you did get my signature. I seem to remember doing it on a card for you, I think. Again, see bilge pumps for any comments on Type 003. Trust me, you'll heard them, and they will come from the same sources. Annual report. Suppose a couple of European navies team up for a new cruiser design. This design is to end of service at least by 2035. What is the size of the ship, and what systems do you think they go with? Actually, that was the interesting thing, because someone actually did suggest a Franco-Italian project like the Horizon frigate turned into for a cruiser design, or rather, as they were calling it, an expanded global presence ship. Cute, that's fine. Idea. I don't think it ever got off the discussion stage, and that certainly I don't think I seem to remember ever seeing a website or anything about it. Honestly, it might not have got out of the meeting room it was in, but I think the rough idea was something roughly 18,000 tons, and that sort of region. Calvin, ever something book from Ariel Matynov? Possibly. I've got a load of books by some Russian authors sitting up in my room now. I've just got the box down from the attic. Even just Russian names. They go with my Volkanov and various other books like that. Andrei Matynov. Yes, Andrei. I think I do have Andrei. Arne, I don't. I'm not sure about, but Andrei, I think I possibly do. So, as the fluffy researcher, the Terra been in the doghouse lately? Neither of them ever was in the doghouse. They're both very well behaved and dutifully fluffs. However, they may occasionally be late putting in their research assignments. There might have been a reason the Tafra had to do the message to everyone, because the fluffy research assistant might have been curled up in a ball in a armchair in a lounge, complaining about feeling unwell. However, you go to the vets again tomorrow and hopefully they can fix your ears. Poodles are notoriously bad for ear infections. Please note this. It's the same with spaniels. We had them before we had poodles. Long-eared, floppy-eared dogs with lots of fur in their ear will get seeds, and no matter how hard you try, and you do try, and that's why every time I take them for a you will all know what I'm talking about, but not mentioning the word of. I comb his ears out. Zebedee finds it a bit annoying. That's a fluffy, it's a training assistant fluffy researcher, isn't, because he feels that he deserves some attention. So I also comb his tail out. So he feels it's fair. But let's be honest, the ears on a corgi are not the same as the ears on a poodle. So every time I have to comb the ears out, and he doesn't like it. I hold the ear and make sure it's nice and safe while because it's tugging on it a bit, but it's to comb it through to get the seeds out. You have to do the inside and the outside to make it done properly. And you try that. You check him. You keep him as far back from bushes as possible, because someone likes to go into bushes to do his business. And when I say go into bushes, I mean he really likes to go inside them and circle around them. But no, we don't let you do. We try to stop you doing that, and don't let you do that. Yeah, ear infections, they happen. Thanks, I'm still going to do a stream about banned books. At some point, I will do a stream about banned books. At some point, I will. Once I've got, I think I need to have at least a dozen banned books that I am happy to talk about on a stream without YouTube going after me. Hello. Hello. Steam Rangers, a Seafire 1B Mark 5. Did they have their wingtips chipped like their land version? Honestly, not sure. Off the top of my head, I can't remember that one, and that would be more. And it's really annoying I can't, but I would have to go dig into my Seafire book. And honestly, don't take this wrong way, but I'm too tired after today to go digging around for books because I'm doing all the sitting down. No. Nice one. Why would 9 12-inch win out over 8 13.5-inch for a large cruiser design? Because the 12-inch is going to be faster firing, easier to maintain, and that's going to give you 9 guns, so more reliability, more guns it's basically going to give you enough volume of fire to do a lot more. But honestly, if you're looking at an 8 13.5 inch versus a 9 12, you're looking at a 4 turret design. You could possibly get a 12 inch design for that one, in which case you've gone full. This is now definitely looking like it's. If it was a heavy cruiser, it's something which is very potent. But also, again, 12-inch ammunition is probably easier to start producing than 13.5 inch, especially if you're American. If you're British, you might consider 13.5 inch because we had the 13.5 inch gun, but probably we'd still go 12 inch because once you go to a certain size, you are starting to look like you're building a battleship, and that becomes a problem for you. Whereas 12-inch in World War II would fit with a cruiser because you're really looking at 16 to 18-inch for the battleships. So you're looking at 50% more, 50% plus more. I know, 30 to 50% more. If you're considering, again, if we go back to when the 12-inch was the standard gun for the pre-dreads, most of the cruisers were looking at 9.2-inch guns, which is roughly, let's be honest, or 6-inch, were sort of looking sort of at 8-inch or 9.2-inch, which is roughly, again, it's a third to 50% greater. Calm, how effective is 6-inch as a coastal defense battery such as a North Fort? It's nice to have. It's going to drive off a 6-inch cruiser, maybe an 8-inch cruiser if you're lucky, but probably not anything bigger. I suggest for everyone, if the RN proceeded with a mini renown large cruiser, why would the RN be buying them, and what would their job be? Let's see. If they proceed with a mini renown large cruiser, and they're building something with, I don't know, 9.2-inch turrets, they're probably looking at a ship which is going to be a global commerce vessel. It's, how do I put this politely? Okay, so when your battle cruisers are getting, when they first come in, there's not much differential between them and the large cruisers in terms of cost, the armor cruisers, and there's a lot of differential in terms of capability. However, as time goes on, you're building light cruisers. Hello, you want to get involved in this? You heard me talking about your favorite ships. Okay, capital ships. We're talking about capital ships, yes, and you got involved. So, you're trying to get up in my lap to this. You trying to teach this? You decided you want to teach this. You could remember. Poodles. So, as time goes on, though, they go up, and the difference between them and light cruisers grows, and there's a gap opening up. And then you have large light cruisers come in, which are kind of weird, especially when they try and claim Courageous and Glorious are large Glorious and Furious are large light cruisers. They're really, really not. So really, that's sort of where you're starting to get that sort of heavy cruiser design. And you could almost call Courageous, Glorious, and Furious would be heavy cruisers if they'd actually been, to an extent, decently and appropriately armed and armored. But where's the biscuit? Where's the biscuit? Where's the biscuit? I don't know where the biscuit is. But last ones. But the point you start to find it making is, if you're building a sort of mini renown, what's his role going to be? Its role is going to be commerce protection, commerce interdiction, and global presence. It's going to be the big cruiser. And that's what it's basically going to be. It's going to be a task group lead, especially once you get aircraft carriers in, it's probably going to be a lead defense ship for them. Be far more efficient than having a battleship with them, because that would slow them down. It's got enough firepower that any battle cruiser has got to think twice about engaging. Yes, they'll win, but how much damage? And that's the ultimate thing you have to sometimes point out to people is the whole thing for the surface raider is that they have to win every time, and they have to have minimal damage, because the moment they start racking up damage is the moment they start being weak enough that their people can get those hunting fleets can catch them. And hunting fleets are, of course, composed of ships which can kill them. So, or at least a combination of ships which can kill them. That's the whole point of hunting fleet. So, yeah. So, if you've got enough 9.2-inch guns, you're going to be a threat to a battlecruiser. Not going to kill it in a one-on-one fight, but a group of you would kill it, especially if it can't run away from you. Oh, is that helping? Is that helping your ear? Oh, is that helping? Sorry, is that making you feel better? Yeah, I think stuff you might have your Roosevelts mixed up again. Okay. Hello. So, what's more likely to return en masse? 6, 8-inch, or 12-inch for Celtic battles? 6-inch. Most likely return en masse. I know they were trying an 8-inch for the Zumwalts, but it would have been. I think 6 inches most likely to return. And look, what happened to obviously iron ammunition sizes? Scrapped or sold at discount? I don't know. Mixture of the two. Lance, have you had any feedback on the actual naval treaty series from Draco and other colleagues? Yeah, I've had a lot of chats with them about it. It's been quite interesting. Mostly they agree with me. There's points they don't, but you know, as I've said before, if you have 12 historians in a room, you're going to have about 300 points of view. Richards, wow, the killers are out in the War Thunder today, and apparently I'm not counted amongst the numbers. Ouch. Also, were you able to find a reason for France going with 13-inch guns for Dunkirk Clarke as opposed to 13.4-inch guns? France had 4 gun calibers for their 4 dreadnought classes. Honestly, no real answer to that one. They seem to be just going with the best gun they could get at the time, or rather, the best gun they thought they could get at the time. Paul Stuxy, silly question probably. Where do I find the latest build from, please? Simplecast. They usually come out on Wednesday. If they don't come out on Wednesday, that's because I've had a problem with usually the lovely people at iTunes. Because the Simplecast upload works okay, but sometimes iTunes doesn't like it. And then they have issues at Simplecast, and I then have to resolve the issues. Azaski, are we still capable of building ship structures, especially decks, to handle the weight and recoil of 12-inch or big guns? Yeah. We have all the plans and all the designs and all the information for how they did it. Would we have to relearn some of the techniques? Probably, but we could do it. Right. Last the Iron Bro. That's on them. Thank you. Follow up. Singles, twins, or will they study the past and launch a triple mount out of the gate? Oh, they'll start off with singles, then maybe go to twins, and probably stay with singles for a long while until anyone's actually trying to fight. You'll get there, Georgia Newman. You will get there. And thank you very much, everyone. So, thank you. Hope you enjoyed. And thank you for all the super chats and all the support. It really wouldn't be done without you, so thank you. Night Tyrion, why would the IGN planning to replace their battlecruisers with large cruisers when the likely British 12-inch large cruisers would work alongside the World War era battlecruisers? probably it's a measure of their infrastructure capacity. You know, you can those large cruisers could use different yards than the capital ships, and they wanted to concentrate their capital ships on things like Yamatos and bigger. Also, in the nicest way, there's a lot of the how do I put this politely? The IGN, which is theoretical, and it's a lovely idea in theory, not so much in practice. I will do KVG. I will check Discord, but give me a while to check it. Because honestly, tonight I'm going to be pretty pooped. Right, thank you, Dan Freeman. Let's go through and say thank you to everyone. Ba-da-da-dee, daddy, go as high as I can. Let's see how far it lets me go. Ryan, thank you, Carl Gasberg, Francis Osado, Stafford Thompson, Stafford, Sean, and Dan. Thank you for doing the lovely admin role. Paul, Seneca Nero, Nathan, thank you. 96831, Andrew Paul, John South, thank you. Christopher Ryan, Melanie 1640, Jess P, Mr. Richards, Great Dominion, thank you. Thank you, Anook. Thank you, Carl Harmon. Very nice to meet you today. Thank you, Carl and I said thank you to Carl. Thank you, 96831. Thank you, Stephen Richards. Thank you, Costa Drowsiness. Thank you. And thank you, 527755555. In your opinion, do you believe it is wise for USN to not have a capable replacement of the Tickeron class, and should they, in a Monday, never come on? Yes, they should. And frankly, I've been on at this for ages. If you've listened to Bill Trumps, you'll hear me many times pointing out that they could have just used the Zumwalt hull. The Zumwalt hull was there. They could have built a perfectly useful, at least interim model if they didn't want, by just going, right then, these guns aren't working. Okay, let's fill them with Mark 41 VLS, and that will do. That provides us with a lot of missiles and a couple of 5-inch guns, maybe. Do you believe that 526-755? Do you believe the USN will ever design another class of cruisers going forward? I think they might be forced to, because I think they're probably looking at Type 55s and going, but whether they'll be cool cruisers is a different matter. There are going to be a lot of ships which are cruisers, but which aren't cool cruisers in service in future years. There are. In fact, most of the ships in service these days are de facto cruisers in their role in terms of peacetime duties, but they're not cool cruisers. Thank you, Chris Sarcy. Thank you, Glenn Stewart, and thank you everyone else. Thank you, Paul Amos, and thank you, everyone. And Jenna, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye. Oh, yeah. Besides, the Zumwalt's slightly longer VLS also work and might come handy against anti-hypersonic SAMs. Yes, that is the other option. You could build in a lot of Type 53 Type 53 VLS. That would have been the other option to fill them up with. And how many 12-inch armed mini Renowns would the RN likely try to acquire? If they'd had the chance, probably about a dozen or so if they'd wanted them. But it's a case of how many they're going to get to build before war begins. That's always a question. Again, remember, it's you go to war with what you have, not what you wish for or you want, and you fight the battles with what's available, not what you wish was available. Wishes don't win battles. Dreams don't fight wars. Reality is what will fight a war, and what of that reality is actually working is what will fight the battles. Take care, everyone. Thank you.